YouTube? And it's your boy Solid back with another solid reaction. And today, man, we got the story of Kimbo Slice. Now, when I first ran into Kimbo Slice, it was back before YouTube was really YouTube. You was watching videos and Kimbo Slice was fighting niggas in the backyard. Like, no, run them hands. Like, that's when I met Kimbo Slice, before he was an MMA fighter, before all of that, man. And when he was running hands in the backyard, when he made that a thing. So we're gonna go ahead and check this video out and see exactly what they're talking about, man. But, man, if this is your first time seeing your boy Solid on your screen, man, do your boy a favor, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel so you never miss another solid reaction. And let's get into this one and see what's going on.
The story of the legendary street fighter Kimbo Slice does not follow the traditional trajectory you would normally find within a fight game. There was no standout collegiate wrestling run or glittering spell on the amateur circuit. Kimbo's story is an explosive one, a truly unique rise that stood as one of the more memorable sagas of his era. It is a tale that was equal parts exhilarating and completely tragic.
I never understood why he wore that
numbers
Dewey.
May suggest,
he ain't had no hair on
there can be no doubts over Kimbo Slice's merits as a true icon within the world of fighting in this modern day. This is the story of Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo used to get busy though, real talk.
Born in the Bahamas, but raised in the U.S. and Cutler Ridge, Florida, the man who would later become Kimbo Slice, Kevin Ferguson, or Kimbo, enjoyed an upbringing that was laced with the various trials and tribulations that often breed the type of fighter he would eventually also become. Picked on relentlessly as a result of his heritage, as you would expect, Ferguson was forced to adapt to his surroundings, toughening himself up so he could fight back when no other option existed. During this time, as a teenager, he first began taking part in street fights. Though not the type of organized brawls he would later drift towards, he fought oftentimes in self-defense, learning his craft out of necessity, not as a hobby or a stray curiosity.
Most of us
By the time he hit his 20s, Kimbo was already a seasoned fighter, not afraid of doing what needed to be done in order to survive. After a chance encounter with an old school friend who went to work in the adult entertainment business, Ferguson began working as a bodyguard and limousine driver, making ends meet, despite still being homeless at this point in his life. It was around 2003, at the age of 28, when Kimbo first took part in a form of combat that would end up defining his time spent in the public eye. Unsanctioned street fights were a big step up financially for the struggling powerhouse. And while he had yet to develop any sort of internet presence, through his infamy as a fighter, word began to spread about this seemingly unbeatable slugger who was knocking out local enforcers like it was nothing. Eventually, once again through chance, his biggest fight yet was set to be filmed for release on the internet. After winning the bout in emphatic fashion, the sheer amount of damage Kimbo managed to do to his adversary saw him dubbed with the moniker Slice. The internet sensation was slowly growing a legitimately large audience, and now armed with a name that did justice to his larger-than-life persona, the Kimbo Slice train started to pick up serious steam. 2 years removed from his first foray into organized street fights, Slice enrolled in the Freestyle Fighting Academy, intending to use the MMA gym as a means of sharpening his tools for his blossoming street fighting career. However, from there, Slice began to find a curiosity for the more multifaceted world of mixed martial arts, and shortly after, he began a love affair with MMA he would hold on to for the rest of his days. Slice was signed to make his amateur MMA debut against the former WBO heavyweight boxing champion Ray Mercer, a bout that saw him switch camps and bring in the UFC and Pancrase legend Bas Rutten. With the scene set for an almighty opening voyage into the MMA world, Kimbo did not disappoint in the slightest, finishing Mercer in just 72 seconds with a guillotine choke. The now defunct promotion Elite XC jumped at the opportunity to sign this budding talent and immediately brought him under their wing, matching Slice up with the 20-fight veteran Beau Cantrell for his professional debut. Despite having no pro experience, it was very clear at this point in time that Elite XC had a potential star in their hands with Kimbo. And once he went out there and scored a 19-second victory over Cantrell, you best believe that the hype surrounding this relatively green talent lifted to another level entirely. Next up for Slice was—
like, bro, just look at his knuckles, bro. I'm sitting there, like, that's what I'm looking at, bro. Like, his knuckles are battered and bruised, bro. His hands are, like, swollen, but they swollen and it became like his hands, his cuts and bruises have became calluses, so it's like a hard cushion on that, man, boy. Like, so when he hits you, you feel that. You feel every bit of that.
Next up for Slice was the UFC legend Tank Abbott, who had accepted a showdown with the promotion's newest star after Kimbo called him out post-fight. The aging Abbott was truly something of a lamb to the slaughter against his heavy-handed opponent, suffering a 43-second KO that saw Kimbo move to 2-0 as a pro.
Hit him like that.
albeit a slower one, came by way of a third-round TKO victory against James Thompson, in a fight that was indeed a scrappy affair. But all in all, Kimbo's aggression and his top control were enough to see him edge.
Yup.
Elite XC had a
tight.
real gem on their hands. That much was clear. And while their next step was to match him up against the UFC legend Ken Shamrock, a fight day injury to the former champion left the promotion in a bit of a tricky spot. With just hours to go until the fight was set to take place, the light heavyweight Seth Petruzzelli received the short-notice call to step up from his undercard spot to take on the fearsome heavyweight knockout artist. Unfortunately for Kimbo, Elite XC, and the number of bettors who likely saw this as a sure thing, Petruzzelli managed to score a crazy 14-second knockout, bringing the Kimbo Slice hype train to an almighty halt. It was a disaster for the Elite XC promotion, as it later emerged that they had reportedly offered Petruzzelli a sum of money not to take Kimbo down to the mat. In the end, the bout contributed to the fall of the organization, and this event would prove to be their last. However, all was not lost for the now 3-1 Kimbo Slice. Though still inexperienced and untested at the highest levels, Dana White and the UFC came a-knockin', offering Slice a position on the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, an installment of the long-running series that was set to be coached by light heavyweight superstars Quinton "Rampage" Jackson and Rashad Evans. Kimbo, as you would expect, was the least experienced member of the cast and was knocked out of the competition by the future UFC fan favorite Roy Nelson, losing by way of second-round TKO after succumbing to Big Country's crucifix position. During this time, however, Kimbo endeared himself to the fans through his work ethic, his humbleness, and above all other things, his likability. With a huge target on his back, he entered a house full of hungry hopefuls, and all things considered, the show served only to boost his stock in the eyes of the MMA world. The Kimbo experiment had worked enough in the eyes of Dana and his team to warrant them offering Slice a UFC contract, setting him up to make his promotional debut against Houston Alexander in 2009. The fight, though expected to be a barn-burning brawl, was a relatively slow-paced affair due to Alexander's decision to break character and resort to a heavy leg-kicking strategy. In the end, though his legs were battered and beaten, Slice had done enough in the eyes of the judges to take home a decision victory. But with his maiden voyage in the UFC now under his belt, Kimbo returned to the octagon 6 months later for a considerable step up in competition. Signed to take on the prospect Matt Mitrione, Kimbo was thoroughly outclassed from the first bell to the second round.
Kimbo was a
TKO
big
stoppage,
dude, and the crazy thing is, he's not fat. He's muscle. Like, hey, this old just gout. Like, he like, yo, what?
Kimbo looked to stand and trade. Mitrione moved. He kicked at the legs and eventually forced enough of an opening to secure the finish. And while he was a man known for his fighting spirit, even in the unforgiving environment that was the streets, it really did look as though Kimbo quit in that second round. So much so that Dana White said in the wake of this defeat that Kimbo had likely fought his last fight under the bright lights of the UFC. And in sticking to his word, Kimbo Slice was cut from the UFC's roster shortly after, leaving with a 1-1 octagon record. 5 long years would pass between that point in time and his next mixed martial arts outing, a time Kimbo spent honing his craft on the professional boxing circuit, going 7-0 as a boxer before Scott Coker and Bellator made him an offer to return to MMA. Bellator 138 in June of 2015 was the event, and his opponent, Ken Shamrock, was of course the man whose last-minute pullout led to Slice's embarrassing 14-second knockout loss 7 years ago under the Elite XC banner. It was a matchup that was years in the making.
I'd have took that personal.
And yet, when the
real talk, I'd have took this fight real personal, bro, because you the reason why I got my first loss, bro. I take that personal, bro. I'm about to beat the shit out you, bro. I'm about to beat the crap out of you. I'm about to...
time came to fight, the contest was something of a dud, as Slice won by TKO at 2 minutes 22 seconds of the first round.
Why are you
it
not
wasn't
fighting
overly
back?
competitive, and all in all, Shamrock looked all of his 51 years old. Indeed, Bellator had a new star in their hands. But this final chapter of Kimbo Slice's career would take an almighty turn for the worst. Kimbo was signed to take on a friend-turned-foe from the street fighting world, Dada 5000, a man who, like Slice, was a larger-than-life personality, but inexperienced within the sport of mixed martial arts. The fight, when it took place, did so on the most-watched Bellator event of all time, an event that drew in massive numbers on the back of both this clash and the headlining matchup, the third showdown between the aging pioneers Royce Gracie and the aforementioned Ken Shamrock. And while the Gracie-Shamrock bout was bad for its own reasons, Kimbo vs. Dada was widely considered to be the single worst fight in the history of mixed martial arts. Both men gassed within the bout's opening exchanges, and the fight unfortunately went on for close to 3 rounds, with exhaustion causing the TKO win for Kimbo more than anything else. To make matters worse, Slice's victory would be overturned after he tested positive for the banned substance nandrolone. This fight would be Kimbo's last before his untimely death due to heart failure at the age of 42. Though not an elite talent within MMA, he received a wide range of tribute for the strength of his character, his undeniable will to improve, and his infectious ability to entertain. He was a truly unique fighter in a sport filled with unique fighters, and his story is one that deserves to be told to its fullest.
Hell yeah. I mean, I agree with it. But Kimbo Slice was one of those people that was just larger than life. And I mean, I give him more props than anybody, because to come from like being just a YouTube star and really like before it was like YouTube boxing and stuff like that, it was Kimbo Slice. Kimbo Slice was out here knocking people out. Kimbo Slice was out here making real money off of it. Like it was something that made a lot of things start happening. Like we used to have backyard brawls at school. Like we used to have niggas like, I put 10 on it and he gonna rock you. Feel what I'm saying? Like we used to do stuff like that, and it's what it was. But without Kimbo Slice, none of this would be possible. Like he said, rest in peace, Kimbo Slice. I'm everything you've done for us, I really do appreciate it, man. And yo, I don't know anybody who want to step in the octagon with that man. Y'all better than me. I'm just gonna be honest with you. You're better than me, man. But if you guys did enjoy this video, man, hey, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.